Today I'll be going through on bullshit. I'll start off by describing and interpreting the different sections of it, and then at the end I'll evaluate and theorize for the concept as a whole. So to start off, the reading the reading goes over the meaning of bullshit and how it can be used. There are many different things that can be considered bullshit. So it is our job as a reader and as a person to find these different things and understand what they mean. The author finds many different definitions of what bullshit could be, what bullshit, any different interpretation of the word. One of the first definitions brought up was the idea of humbug. Humbug is mainly represented through misinterpretation, which is the intention to deceive. This can be through someone's thoughts, feelings, or attitudes. In a way, it's short of lying. At what point does humbug become lying or lying become humbug? It's up to the interpretation of the speaker, the audience, the context of the word to figure that out. It also has a pretentiousness to it. It's not always pretentious, but most commonly it is. Next, the author brings up Ludwig Wittgenstein. He shows how bullshit can be attributed elsewhere. He brings up the idea of a craftsman making a perfect sculpture, getting rid of every single blemish and flaw in it, spending as much time on even stuff that wouldn't be seen to the naked eye. While on the other hand, you could have a craftsman who does the bare minimum, gets the job done, and hands it off to a customer. Is that in itself bullshit? Is not doing your best bullshit even if you sell it at a lower price? Again, up to the interpretation of the context. If a craftsman sells it for a different, is trying to deceive the recipient, claiming for it to be perfect when he knows there's blemishes, yes, that's bullshit, that's lying, but it doesn't always imply it. He is also famous for his argument with his friend. His friend said she feels like a dog that got run over. Ludwig was not happy, could have been a joke when he said this, but he got in a way upset with this statement because it in itself is a lie. She doesn't know what a dog feels like when it gets run over, so how can then she be that attributing to herself? But then that brings up a whole new can of worms, which is, does that mean every metaphor, every simile, every literary device is then bullshit? Technically, yes, but at what point does it become lying versus bullshit and helping to prove? Again, it's helping to prove what you're saying. Saying that she feels like a dog that got run over emphasizes the pain that she feels in, even though we don't really know. You as an audience understand the meaning behind that. Next, a smaller section, but one that I found interesting, was the idea of gender or sex in bullshit. There's a difference. There's two sayings: a bull session versus a hen session. A bull session a bull session is an informal discussion around males regarding usually religion, politics, or sex. In many cases, men would not be as open in these topics if they were to be taken seriously, but since there's a level of bullshit involved, men can open up in a sense more than they would normally, because, as I said, they don't feel as confined and more free to open themselves up. So here's an example of bullshit being used in a way to open up and help people. And then a hen session is a similar discussion, but amongst females. It differs from bullshit because there's no preconceived notion that the messages are being sustained. So again, these messages aren't entirely being used to be held onto and then later used against each other. It's a small shoot in the shit in a way. Next, it goes into the many definitions of bull. Bull in itself has to do with menial tasks. It implies that this is a bit iffy because it implies that a bull does not have a great sense of importance because it's smaller implications. It's the definitions: trivial, insincere, or untruthful talks, writing nonsense. So again, that emphasizes the trivial or nonsense aspect of bullshit, which is not fully agreed upon by me and the author as well, because it, as I've said before, trivializes the use of bull. It makes it seem like a smaller deal than it is, because in actuality it can have a lot of big impacts, as we'll see later, as we see currently. It also bull has a strong correlation between hot air, which is speaking empty without content. So it's just letting the mouth ramble and wander, not knowing an end in sight. You just keep on going to prove yourself or prove an agenda. And there's also a connection to made between bullshit and bluffing versus lying, bullshit versus lying. I think the most important is the difference between bullshit and lying, because here's a quote: never tell a lie when you can bullshit your way through. This implicitly implies a difference between bullshit and lying. And in the quote, it implies bullshitting is better, whether that be for moral reasons or different reasons can be up to the interpretation of the audience. But again, there's the fact that the lie implies that you know the truth and are deliberately not telling it, while bullshit doesn't always require the same knowledge. So you can bullshit your way without lying, in a sense. There's also St. Augustine, who describes the 8 different types of lying. He distinguishes lying by intent or justification for which a lie is told. He brings up the idea of telling a lie versus a liar. Telling a lie is something we all do. It's part of human nature, versus a liar is someone who consistently goes upon lying and gets joy out of it. And then there's also bullshit in the modern world. It might seem now like there's a constant flow of bullshit, but I don't know how truthful that is compared to times of past, or it's just the fact that it's so readily available through news and social media. But bullshit happens because someone talks about something they don't know enough about. So again, we see that a lot in social media. There's also a tendency for people to speak about matters that they are ignorant to, they don't know enough about. So again, we see that in social media, people having a small inkling of an idea and then further that. It's also in itself part of democracy to have an opinion about something, no matter what it is. It's written as Americans to want to voice ourselves, to get people to follow us and to get enough support. Okay, so now let's to the evaluation portion. I believe that the author was quite effective. Upon looking at the reading more closely, the first time I read through it, I was rather lost, but then reading it a second time, you really understand what the author's trying to get at more. The author does a great job of providing definitions and sources, different quotes, for what goes into making bullshit. He gives the reader a plethora of options to choose what they like, what they don't like, and the reader is able to make the decision for how they want their opinion to be formed. In my mind, I kind of see this like a dog musher. The reader's the one who takes the reins and in a way can steer to what final say they want to get at, but the author's like the dogs pulling the reader along, getting them to the destination, and in the end are the ones with the control. And then for our overall class and concept as a whole, I feel like this book does a great job at setting the groundwork for us to build up on, knowing what bullshit is, knowing what different forms it can take, sets in motion, I guess, the rest of our class. spotting it, knowing how to handle it, puts this class in a different, sets it in motion for something where it could be completely different if we didn't have this baseline understanding. I find myself now when I either tell a lie or know someone else is telling a lie, I can understand the different levels of bullshit in it, what's important and what's not. And again, there it is, the bullshit can have different levels of importance. I think this is one of the biggest ideas of bullshit. Something that I want to harp back on is the trivialization of bullshit. Because bullshit can have different levels, it is often connotated with the lower levels. So bullshit isn't seen as something very important or can be kind of scoffed at. But nowadays we are seeing people bullshit their way into places of high power, with that being Trump or Elon, because they can bullshit so well and people believe the bullshit because it has been trivialized and it's not as seen as deep as lying, even though it is it's a different section of lying. They are able to get to power way too easily. So I think as people as a whole, we need to understand bullshit and see when it's gotten too bad and stop it when it gets there. Thank you. Sorry, that went on a little too long.